What's up guys, and welcome to this windsurf tutorial here on my YouTube channel. If you clicked on this video, you probably want to learn how to get planing and get into your foot straps while windsurfing. And before we get into the technical tutorial, I just want to quickly emphasize that if you're new to this sport, you probably don't understand what planing in the foot straps and also in the harness really means. It's amazing. To me personally, it was life-changing, like to almost every other windsurfer, because once you know how to plane and once you know how to windsurf, it sort of becomes a lifestyle. And all these things really start when you get planing, when you go fast on the water. And this is why this tutorial is so important and why this step for you out there is so important, because what you probably learned in the windsurf school, this floating around thing, this is not the real windsurfing. Real windsurfing starts when you're planing. And I showed you some pictures. This is really an absolute dream. Let's start in the tutorial. And if you're new to this YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe. I upload tutorials and windsurf videos basically every week. So let's start with the video. That in order to get planing, you need to know the very basic essentials. So that's what you learn in the windsurf school when you get your windsurf license. And that means, going in a straight line, being able to go a little bit downwind, being able to go a little bit upwind, have a little bit of knowledge about your gear, knowing that this is a boom, a mast, a sail, a board, and so on. So these are core essentials. So you have that base safety, because when you learn how to get planing, of course you go faster, and that means you also take a tiny little bit of risk. So if you have no clue at all, then you might want to work on your basics first. You need a board and you need a rig to get planing. Without that, it's impossible. And there's an easy rule of thumb, and that's essentially that you want to choose a board in the very beginning that has 60 liters more volume than your body weight in kilograms. Meaning if you're 80 kilograms, you want to choose at least a 140 liters board. And what this will do, at least when you have a kind of decent board, it will make your board float a little bit higher above the water, and that will make it easier to get planing. Because the smaller your board is, the deeper it will sink down into the water, and the more active and more precise you need to be with your technique. And that of course also means that you need a little bit stronger wind. And when you choose a bigger board, you can get planing in lighter wind. And you can also choose a smaller sail, which is very important, because when you have a really huge sail, the handling becomes difficult, especially if you're a beginner. What you want for a sail is a sail that has a stable, relatively stable pressure point. So the pure beginner sails that you get at the windsurf school at the very beginning, this is not nice, this is not good. This doesn't really help you at all with the real windsurfing. In a sail like this, you have battens, and these battens have a bit of tension, and so there is a clean profile in a sail like this, especially when you have a new sail, of course. And this profile makes it a lot easier for you to anticipate what happens when the wind kicks in the sail. This is really important when you get planing. And size-wise, it also depends a little bit on your body weight, but there's no easy rule for that. But I just recommend to go a bit smaller, so 5-6 square meters, something like this. This is good in the beginning. This is also how I learned how to get planing when I was 11. It happened right here on this lake, all the way over there, actually on a big old Formula board. These were big race boards with a lot of volume. And regarding the equipment, because this is not an easy topic, especially not when you're a beginner, you can feel free to hit us up at our own windsurf shop. We are very happy to help you. It's linked down in the video description, and my team and I, we are trying to solve every windsurfer's problem. So just hit us up when you have a question or you need something, and we hope we can help. So guys, there are a few different ways to get planing, and let me tell you the first one. It's a little bit of a cheat code first, and that's if you know the basics of windsurfing. You go to a place with a little bit of rolling wave, and you go with the wave and you let the wave push yourself, and like that you will get planing really easy. Of course you need to make it outside, but this is pretty much the easiest way how to get planing, although it comes with some difficulties, because you need to go to a place, maybe that's not your local home spot, and so on. And please don't do that alone. Never go windsurfing alone, especially when you're just starting out. Then there's the second way, that's the brutal way. I know there are some people out there that will choose that brutal way. It was also the way that I learned it myself, and that's simply to go in conditions where you are completely overpowered. If you have a flat lake, for example, and you go on a day where it's howling, where it's full power wind, slowly and you control it a little bit and you have the right equipment, you will almost certainly at some point get planing, also without the perfect technique. But the third way is really to get planing with a clean technique and to understand how that getting planing works and what it means. And so when you see me planing in these pictures, it's of course with my slalom equipment, but the idea, the dynamics behind it are exactly the same as when you go with freeride equipment, like this one for example. And what happens basically when you're planing is that from a certain amount of power that you generate through your sail and through the fin in your board, the power becomes so big that, like when you're ditching a stone over the water, you have the ability when you're windsurfing to free your board. And the getting planing idea is basically to make that movement of getting your board free as simple as possible, because that's the hard part, you know. And it's pretty much actually like when you take a rock that you're flipping over the water, you know, when you're just dropping it, it's just dropping below. And when you accelerate it, it starts flipping. And what you want to do is accelerate your equipment and make your board come up out of the water. And when you do that in a controlled way, you go planing really, really easy. And at some point, by the way, this will feel like, you know, riding a bicycle or something like that. Basically like walking. It will be completely automatic. So to generate the speed and the power to free up your board and fly over the water, you want a relatively flat spot when you do it with technique, and you want a lot of wind. You don't want to be fully out of control and overpowered, but you want to be sailing in a way that when you sheet in, you probably learned that in the windsurf school, but when you sheet in, you're like, whew, okay, I feel some power. And the point is, once you get planing, this power, it will sort of relieve, because you feel that power because you're pushing against the water, you know. And as soon as you're ditching, flying over the water, it feels a lot easier. But that's the first thing. Then of course, as I said, you want the right equipment. And then in the beginning, you simply want to sail first on a crosswind course in these overpowered conditions and get a feeling for that. To develop this feeling, there is a simple technique that you can use, and this is to open your sail. So imagine the wind comes from here, slightly overpowered conditions, it's blowing in here, and you open your sail. You can hold it like this. This is the good old safety position that you probably learned in the windsurf school, and you close it. And you open it again, and you close it. And every time you close it, you will feel that power, and you will feel a little acceleration in your board. And once you develop a feeling for that, you can actually go to the next step. And that next step is to really sheet in, generate power, go a little bit downwind, and therefore, you know, basically get the speed to finally go for the planing. But before you now sail downwind, I want to give you a quick little exercise that you can do. And this exercise is not only good for, you know, getting better at that specific, you know, movement, but it's also good to get a better overall feeling. So as you can see, I'm standing here on the board, and if I would be sailing now on the water, I would probably be standing a little bit like this. And you have to imagine that your sail, when there's power in it, it's always pushing down here. So the further I have my body weight positioned to the front of the board, the further the nose of the board sinks down. This is really important to note. So your goal is to step by step, when you go faster and faster, move a little bit to the back of your board. But let's say you start in your natural sailing position, and what you try is you go down into your knees. Of course, I have now zero power, so it's a little bit harder. On the water, I could lean back a little bit, but this is the exercise that you want to do a little bit. And when you have power in your sail and you lean a tiny little bit into your sail like that, you will first of all learn a big range of motion on your board, and you will automatically pull a little bit on your backhand. Pulling on your backhand is the sheeting in that I'm always talking about, and that is what is generating the main power basically. And now what you want to do is, you know, do it like here in the front in your natural sailing position, go down, okay. And then next step, you go back a little bit, you do a little squat again, and you will feel that if you're on the water, every time you do it, you go a little bit faster. And at some point, I will now step onto this foot strap. This is, by the way, also something that you guys can do. You will be very far back, and you will be doing your squat, and you will be pushing a little bit, and you will feel like, okay, this feels nice. It frees the nose up a little bit. Maybe in the beginning your board will also do some weird turning moves, but once you have this under control, you are really well positioned to go to the next little exercise. Now the next exercise, unfortunately, is a little bit hard to show without any wind, but I will still try to show it to you. So you want to repeat the exact same thing and keep your front leg a little bit straighter than your back leg. Actually, you can try to keep your front leg fully stretched. So stretch out your front leg and then go down with your back leg. And now when you do that on the water while going on a crosswind, and you also lean in a little bit, which unfortunately I can't do. Yeah, I wish I could show it to you like that. But you will feel that because you're stretching the front leg, you relieve pressure from your front foot. And because you're pulling here and you have more sail in your power, I know this is hard to imagine, your sail pulls a little bit more here. And so you're balancing your board in a way. And this is really shortly before to actually get planing. You're really close when you manage to do that. And the next step now is just like with the exercise before, you go a little bit further back, and you do again the squat. And you know you don't need to stretch it fully all the time, go a little bit with feeling, but you do all this on a cross course and you go down into these squat positions and lean in a little bit. You might have a tendency to pull a lot with your front arm. It's better to pull with your backhand. But this is why it is so important, you know, to start out easy in these overpowered conditions with this, you know, sheeting in, sheeting out and getting a feeling for the sail. Because as you just see, when I sheet in, my front hand is barely moving. It's all happening in the backhand. And why is that important? It's just important because when you pull with your front hand, you release power in your sail, you know. If I pull here, sail opens, and usually also, you know, you might do a little upwind turny thing when you do that. And it's all good. It's nice to know because when you're totally overpowered, you know, you can just let go of your backhand and you can be sailing like this. Your sail will be going like a flag with the wind and you will have no power anymore. But with the getting planing exercises, don't pull too much with your front hand. That will happen automatically. Rather focus on your backhand. Okay guys, so I now gave you a few exercises and I know that there are people out there that explain these things way more complicated, but I have to be honest, I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of simplicity, and from my own experience and everybody that I know that knows how to windsurf, I just know you have to go a little bit by feeling. You have to learn these things yourself, and I think that's why it makes a lot of sense, you know, to use a few exercises to understand how things are working, but then to not go too deep. And so the next step really is, because you're almost there, you almost made it now, the next step is to do what I just told you while going downwind. And this, in Germany we say that's the Königsdisziplin. It's in English translated, it would be the king's discipline. This going downwind now really combines two things. When you go downwind, you're sailing with the wind, so you usually have the, you know, ability to go even faster than before. And now when you combine all that with the techniques and the power and going back on your board and sheeting in a little bit, you know, usually that is exactly when you're getting planing. So as I told you in the beginning, it is mandatory that you know at least a little bit how to get downwind because we can't learn everything at once. It's simply not possible. But go on a downwind course in these slightly overpowered conditions and then repeat the exercises. And you will feel that on a downwind course, a few things are a little bit different because, for example, you will not be able to sheet your sail in so much because what then would happen is oversheeting. You know, you will get to know oversheeting. Oversheeting means you sheet in and you you pull over your sail and the wind comes from the other side and you crash and you face plant and it hurts a little bit. So you will get to know it. But do these exercises on a downwind course in overpowered conditions. And then what you unfortunately have to do also, and this is simply the truth, is you have to wait a little bit for your magic moment. Every windsurfer has that magic moment in his or her career, and this is when it happens. This sounds a little bit weird. This is when it happens for the first time, when you for the first time feel it. And this is when you go on the downwind course, and randomly it will, when you're starting out, it will, let's be honest, it will be random. You will not be able to do everything perfect. When your board becomes free for the first time and you feel like that stone that is ditching over the water and you go fast and you're screaming, and then most likely you let go of your equipment because you become so scared, because it's, yeah, you will go 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times the speed that you did before when you were just floating around. But guys, still, because we're talking about getting planing, of course, if you look at the board, you see these beautiful things. These are Footstraps, and let me give you some quick information about that. So this is a freeride board, and this is a Futurefly Freebird. It's a really nice board actually to learn how to get planing, because here you have a lot of different options. And the Footstrap sailing is really what comes first once you get planing. So getting in that front footstrap is the next really big step for you out there when you want to learn how to get windsurfing. And what you want to do is place that front footstrap as far to the inside of your board as possible. And as you also saw in the tutorial, you know, when I tried to show you the exercises on this board, for example, when I move backwards, you know, I'm straight in the footstrap. And this is different from board type to board type. For example, on my slalom boards, the footstraps are all the way out here, so it becomes really difficult to get into these footstraps, especially as a beginner. But on a board like this, you put the footstraps to the middle, and you could actually, you know, be floating like this and do, you know, your exercises like this. Once you're really good and you got it all going, you go into the footstraps really quick. But you want, once you are flying downwind, once you are planing for the first time, you want to get into that front footstrap first. It will take you a few times, but once you're in here and you're sailing like this, and you're going fast, you're like, okay, I have a tiny little bit of safety, because your foot, it can't fly around on your board. And then the next step, and this is where people have different opinions, can either be to get into the harness first while you're planing, or to get into your back strap. It works as the following: when you get into both footstraps first while planing, that is the more safe option, and the faster you get into the harness, the less safe it becomes. And yeah, harness sailing is a topic for a different video. This you will also have to learn to get that full planing experience, because of course, you know, windsurfing is very exhausting without a harness, and when you hang into your harness lines like this, if I now had enough wind, I'm trying to balance it, you know, you essentially can go ahead without doing much with your hands. You know, if you're a really good windsurfer, you're windsurfing, you can windsurf with one finger basically, so that's really nice and neat. But what I wanted to say is, if you're getting planing and you already have a harness and you're already working with the harness, make sure to not be hooked in when you're making your first planing experience, because it can lead to a very rough first catapult experience. Catapult means the following: you're hooked in the harness, you're going, the nose of your board or anything happens that is not right, and then the sail works like a catapult. Because you're hooked in, you're basically the cannonball and you just fly around and you get slapped on your back. Usually nothing bad happens, but it's not so nice. And you can prevent that by getting into the front footstrap first, and then, you know, you have to decide, do you want to get into the back footstrap next, or do you want to get into your harness first? I personally make that decision based on the conditions that I have. If I have completely flat water, I often also like to go into the harness before I get into the footstraps. But of course I also feel very safe on my equipment. Then when it's a little bit rougher, front footstrap first, then the harness, then the back footstrap. And if I, for example, would be now at a competition or the conditions are extremely tough, you get into these footstraps first, of course, after you got planing a little bit, and then you hang into the harness. And the thing is like this: if, for example, now the nose catches water, or you hit a really strong gust and the sail pulls you to the front, you know, you're in that back footstrap and you're safe. And yeah, guys, these are the core essentials of the technique of how to get planing. If you do these exercises maybe for a few weeks, maybe you get lucky. If you have perfect conditions, you can also get it done in a day even. It also depends on your talent, your body weight, your equipment, and so on and so on. But yeah, these are the core essentials, and the goal is, You know, as I told you in the beginning, to fly over that water with 50 kilometers an hour, 40 kilometers an hour, if you're really good, maybe even 60 kilometers an hour. And the thing with windsurfing is, it's fun sports. So you're hanging in your harness, you're in these Footstraps, and it's not so exhausting. You can do it for hours. And this is what you have to keep in mind if you're a beginner, because when you're starting out, maybe it's exhausting to learn these things, but eventually it will be so easy. It will be almost easier than taking a walk in the park. And this is where that amazing windsurf feeling comes alive, and where it will become most likely a lifestyle to you, because you will get very addicted to that feeling. It's full of adrenaline. I want to encourage you guys, you know, try to get planing, get that feeling, work on your skills. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, you can leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're new. And yeah, I will also link you a few other tutorials in the video description where I talk about tuning and stuff like this. Maybe it's interesting to you guys. And yeah, check out our online surf shop, the Wind Lounge. It's linked down in the video description below if you need equipment. And I would say bye-bye.